Welcome to the first episode of Wilderness Insight 24, a video series organized by the Wilderness and Wildlife Protection Society of Royal College, aimed at addressing the crises that is faced within the Sri Lankan wilderness. And here with me today is Professor Sampath Senevirathna. Sir, would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm a research scientist and a professor in zoology at the University of Colombo. Yeah,
Sir, so your expertise is in the field of birds and the evolution of animals.
I've done a zoology or biology degree as my first degree. I did biology for my A levels, and then I wanted to be a scientist. So with my first attempt, I came to University of Colombo science faculty and did a zoology special degree, and then later I went abroad to Canada to study evolutionary ecology of seabirds, and did my research in my PhD in Alaska, in the Arctic, and then done some other postdoctoral degrees in the different parts of Canada and on different aspects, genomics, hybridization, and then on birds and evolution. And now I'm back in Colombo as a professor here, working on different aspects of evolution in birds.
That's a very colored career, sir. We're honored to have you with us today. With regards to the evolution of birds in Sri Lanka, sir, how has it evolved over the years?
So the evolution of birds, it's an interesting topic. There's vertebrates. They have one with backbone. Vertebrates are basically comprised of fish, reptiles, birds, mammals, and amphibians. And the progression of it is that the fish were the first vertebrates, and of that sharks and rays are the first. And then sharks and rays gave rise fish. But then sharks and rays continue to live. Evolution doesn't mean like one has to die to give rise another one. So sharks and rays are there, and then fish, and then among the fish, this group called lungfishers gave rise to the land vertebrates, amphibians first, and then they gave rise to the reptiles and mammals. And among the reptiles, some one lineage became dinosaurs, and very, very big and powerful and diverse. Of the dinosaurs, a certain branch become very agile and slender, and they started to have feathers. So these feathered dinosaurs that were running around and gliding around eventually gave rise to birds. But if you think of it, birds are basically dinosaurs still living, because we don't have a single feature that is only found in birds, but we have many features that basically all bird features are found among dinosaurs.
That's very interesting.
So that's the beginning. And then among the modern birds that are around, which are kind of offshoot of dinosaurs, the ostriches, kiwis, rheas, cassowaries, and emus. Those are the most primitive of birds.
Right.
So they are like closest to dinosaurs among birds. And then you have the chicken, the chicken that we know, Valikukula, cock chicken. They are the most primitive of all living birds outside the ostriches. And then you have the ducks, and then the flamingos. They are very primitive. Flamingos of Mannar, very famous. They are primitive. And then you have all the other birds. So Sri Lanka has, we don't have flightless birds, but we have jungle fowl, which is a chicken, which is endemic, our national bird, which is the most primitive bird in Sri Lanka.
Very interesting.
And then we have the ducks and owls.
So, and why are these birds primitive to Sri Lanka? So, is it the...
No, it's not primitive. It's just among birds, some birds are found in Sri Lanka.
Right, sir. And what are the unique problems we have faced throughout the years with regards to the birds, their extinction?
Uh, Before talking about threats, there's three categories of birds, or like there are different categories of birds. Of that, three major ways of kind of splitting them. One is that you have the resident birds, the birds that are found in Sri Lanka. They live here throughout the year. They breed here and they die here. And so the resident birds are born here, live here, they breed here, and they die.
Right.
So there's about 250 species
Okay.
of such birds. And then you have, of the resident birds, a subset only found in Sri Lanka, nowhere else. We call them endemic birds,
Okay.
or Avenika Gurullo, or Avenika Sattva. So they are only found in Sri Lanka, nowhere else. So they born in Sri Lanka, live here, breed here, and die. But you don't see those species anywhere else in the world. So we have about 34.
That's a lot.
Actually 35 now. Yes. So and then you have migratory birds, third category. They 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 breed they they are born in somewhere else, and then they come to Sri Lanka during the colder months of their native country and spend 6 months here and go back.
Okay.
So they are, since they spent 6 months in their country that they were born and 6 months in here, they belong to both countries. So they are our birds as well. But interesting thing about them, they don't breed here. So they come in normally. Most migratory birds come in about around October, September, mid-September to mid-October, and then they spend 6 months and they leave Sri Lanka around mid-March to mid-April. So,
Okay,
so that's the migratory birds. So that's one way of differentiating them. So there are threats of threat of a endemic bird is different from threat of some of the resident birds. Threat of migratory birds are different from others. And then you have other types of birds. Seabirds. Seabirds are only found in the ocean.
Right.
And then you have shorebirds, the birds that are found in between water and land, in mud flats, in mangroves, and then you have water birds that live in aquatic habitats. Then you have forest birds, like that. So
There are
and then you
many
have
types of birds.
you have raptors, and then you have owls. So these are different types. So each one has its own challenges and unique features. So
So, and with regards to migratory birds, what makes Sri Lanka special, or why do they come to Sri Lanka? Sir?
yeah, Sri Lanka is a special place when it comes to global migratory birds. The world consisted of many countries, about 182 countries, and of that, they are located in different places. Some has oceans, some don't have oceans, some located in mountainous areas, some located in flat areas, and so on. Right? Some in the tropics, some in the cold areas. So migratory birds fly from cold places where in the winter they can't find food, so they have to migrate in search of food and warm weather. Uh, so so the so technically birds fly from colder places to warm places.
Okay. Sir.
Right? So large numbers, billions of birds every year fly from north to south and south to north. Because north to south when the northern hemisphere get colder, and south to north when the southern hemisphere get colder.
Right.
But there's very few land masses in the colder part of the southern hemisphere except Antarctica, and Antarctica doesn't have migratory birds in a sense because they are mostly seabirds that they found there. There's no forest or anything. But in the northern latitudes, there's lots of large land masses in the colder region. So most of the migration takes place in the north to south, and then in the spring, south to north, they are going back to their countries in March and April. So, so there's about 9 global flyways. They are like highways where large numbers of migratory birds fly in a very unique, distinctive routes. Of these 9 global flyways, Central Asian flyway, where we get birds. The southernmost location of the Central Asian flyway is Sri Lanka.
Okay, sir.
Because birds don't fly normally over water. So if a bird flies from Central Asia to Indian subcontinent and try to fly south, they eventually ended up in Sri Lanka because they can't go. It's like a funnel. India is there, and then eventually Sri Lanka at the end of the funnel. So that makes Sri Lanka a very rich place for migratory birds and a unique place for migratory birds. So
Right, sir.
one of the 9 global flyways, Central Asian flyway, has this southernmost dimension. So we get a lot more birds compared to most countries as migratory.
Right, sir. So, and is there a specific reason for birds to fly back to their original country?
Yeah, I mean, there are different theories. The most accepted one is that they were born there, and then due over uh, when the weather get harsh, they were forced to southern latitudes. So they started to have that tendency to fly when things cold south, and then after about 6 months, there's a biological clock kicking, and they start to go back. So that's a kind of most predominant
Right,
theory,
sir.
but there are other theories as well.
Okay, sir. And sir, throughout the past few decades, have there been an increase or a reduction in the amount of birds that migrate to Sri Lanka, or is it constant, sir?
Globally, bird populations have been reduced,
Okay, sir.
alarming. Up to 40% of numbers, not the species, individuals, had been gone over the past 30 to 40 years. So alarming drop of all forms of birds globally. In Sri Lanka also, the records show that the numbers are dropping, relatively alarming rate. Certain birds are dropping much faster, certain ones are dropping slightly slower, but they all going down. Why? Habitat loss, pollution in certain cases, direct mortality, direct killing, not in Sri Lanka, elsewhere, and then other problems like unplanned development or poorly planned development, uh, encroachment of wilderness areas, especially wetlands and forests, and then pesticides, insecticides. Pollution has its own different ways. Pollution of water, pollution of land, pollution of your food. So all these contributing in different ways to this problem. Yes.
Okay, sir. Right, sir. And moving forward, sir, what can be done, sir, globally as well as in Sri Lanka as an island? What can be done to reduce this, sir?
I see. There's different ways. As an individual, as a citizen, as a learned like a person or a school kid, people can contribute. How they can do that? They can allow birds to use their garden. Like if you have a cat, try to keep the cat indoors or prevent cat being try to kill birds. And if in your village or in your town or in your community, uh, you know, force adults to keep large trees because
Okay, sir.
kids don't go and cut trees. It's adults, their parents do that. So, like, maintain large trees at your school, maintain large trees at your workplace, maintain large trees at your garden. If possible, plant native trees, plant trees in your estates, in your other places, school, wherever possible. So, because trees are vital for birds anywhere, and as a citizen, you can prevent people, draining wetlands, or if you have a small wetland patch, even a pond at your house, keep it as it is. Like let you know, don't let pollution or some other thing overtake it. Because
Definitely,
there's
sir.
specific birds uh, only found in wetlands. We
Right,
call
sir.
them water birds. And in a broader scenario, if you have a community or if you have an area that you can have some influence, retain wetlands. Even a paddy field is a wetland. So yes, you can grow paddy while you are maintaining its integrity, so that a lot of other animals can use. And as a country, the country needs forests for forest birds, because forest birds can't live in home gardens.
Yes.
They have specific adaptations that they without forest they can't. Wetlands, the country needs wetlands. What are the wetlands? The ocean beach is a wetland, ocean is a wetland, lagoons, lakes, rivers, they're all wetlands. So don't dump garbage. Don't throw garbage into roads. Don't throw your garbage into your neighbor's place. So don't the garbage removal has to be systematic. Don't cut trees as much as you could like that. So protect forests, protect wetlands, and then there are other habitat types like grasslands. Don't plant trees in grasslands because there are specific species of birds and mammals and other butterflies and other things that specifically need grasslands.
Right.
Not all animals need forests. Not all animals need wetlands. So there are differences. So
Okay, sir.
protect those things, and then the coral reefs, and then the ocean. They are all part of it. Like as a citizen, when you consume responsibly. Don't waste. Switch off your extra bulb. So they are all contributing, right? So that's individually what you can do. Broadly, as a nation, force governments, force authorities, force your school authorities to, be mindful about environment. Everybody
Yes,
talks
sir.
about environment conservation, but people are very self-centric. Like
Definitely,
in a
sir.
family, like people talk about their family. They, even if they don't want to do, like if there's no use for them, the trees, the garden, the forest, the water, animals also have right to live,
Yes.
exist. So you have to consider that. So that is important, and then make sure that criminals like environment criminals, people who illegally cut forests, people who illegally fill lands, people who illegally disturb nature, should be warned, or relative authorities should be informed. So those are all responsibility of different levels.
Yes.
Right?
Definitely. Sir, so if we move on to endemic birds, sir. In Sri Lanka, the endemic birds, is there a specific reason why they're endemic here? Was it like that since the beginning of time, or is it the
That's a good
conditions?
question. To have an endemic or for endemism, or to for an endemic animal to get evolved, you need that animal to be isolated. So isolation is the driver of evolution and endemism. So what causes a population to get isolated from the rest? Water is a big factor. So if you are an island, populations in the island might not able to cross the ocean and get into the
Yes, sir.
mainland. Sri Lanka is an island, so that creates like a higher percentage of endemics in this island of Sri Lanka. And then habitat types also isolate. Like animals living in mountains might not be able to live in lowlands. Animals living in lowlands or birds living in lowlands might not have adaptation to live in mountains. And large rivers can be a bad. So anyway, so all these create. So Sri Lanka it's an island, so it isolates from India. So some populations from India moved to Sri Lanka and got isolated and become endemic. Some isolated in the wet zone, they don't have adaptations to live in dry zone, so they are isolated, so they become endemic. Some isolated in the mountains of central highlands of Sri Lanka, and then they got isolated and become endemic. So like that, so those all these three layers: elevation, the climate, and our island nature, our geology contributed to it. So if you looked at endemics, the wet zone, lowlands have very high endemicity, mountains have very high endemicity. But then the dry zone has less endemicity because dry zone, Sri Lanka dry zone is somewhat like Indian dry zone. So it's only separated by its water.
Right,
So
sir. Sir, and are there any benefits of having an endemic species in your country, sir?
yes, for ecotourism or wildlife-based tourism, endemic species play a big role globally. Like if you were to see a zebra, where you would go? You have to go to Africa.
Yes.
That's where they are. If you want to see an orangutan, where would you go? You have to go to Malaysia. That's where they live. If you want to see penguins, where you would go? You have to go to Antarctica or Southern Ocean. That's where they live. If you want to see polar bears, you go to Arctic. That's where they live. So like that, that's broadly, there are specific areas that people have to travel to see that particular
Yes.
animal. So if you were to like more specific now, if you were to see a yeti, where you go to Himalaya specifically, right? It is there.
Yes.
So similarly, so if you were to see of these 35, any of or all of those 35 endemics to Sri Lanka, you have to go to Sri Lanka. So there's a sport or there's a form of recreation called birding. It's like a sport of bird watching.
Right.
So, and in this sport, like people go global, do global birding tours. So there, those birders come to Sri Lanka to see these 35 endemics and some of the like Asian specialists in Sri Lanka. So endemics give us a lot of revenue through wildlife tourism, and wildlife tourists pay more than normal average tourists.
Right, sir.
So they're spenders. So it's good. And then most of the birding tourists or tourists that are doing birding or wildlife enthusiasts, they come from Europe, Americas, and richer parts of Asia like Japan and China. So they spend more money on a per day, like their expenditure is high.
Yes.
So in Sri Lanka, 5% of our GDP comes from wildlife-based tourism, and our wildlife-based tourism is rooted in on leopard, elephants, tusker especially, and birds.
Right.
So they contribute hugely to our economy. We know what happened like in during COVID times. So tourism collapsed and
Yes,
our
sir.
economy collapsed. So that's that. And then migratory birds, they play a big role as well because they come in large numbers. About 15 million birds come annually to Sri Lanka.
Okay, sir.
And so they come and they nourish us this environment, they enrich our environment so that our tourism can grow. And then the ecosystem services that so the birds protect their forest. They pollinate flowers, they spread seeds, they eat pests, insects, and they keep the balance intact.
Okay.
So without them, the forest will die. Without forest, we won't have water.
Yes,
We will die.
definitely.
So it's a complex thing. So there's a direct and indirect economic benefits.
Right, sir. And moving forward, sir, is there anything special to be done, sir, to overcome the crisis of being endemic, sir, in Sri Lanka, sir?
Again, habitat protection is very important. Every citizen has to push their governments, push their authorities, push themselves to protect large trees, wetlands, grasslands, and different habitats, ocean. That's one. We have to understand the sustainable use of these. These are not just should not taken into you just taken for granted. Yes, Sri Lanka has a lot of natural resources, but we see every day those natural resources are destroyed. Disasters. You put the windmills in major migratory arteries. You destroy forests for agricultural land. You kill tuskers. But tuskers worth millions of rupees. They generate so much revenue for this country. But you see every day tuskers die because it enter into a small chili plantation like plot, or it damages a small something. So the worth of the tusker versus the worth of a pumpkin. It's like, it doesn't make sense. But yes, farmers, sometimes poor farmers, sometimes rich farmers, yes, they contribute to our food supply. But there should be the government intervention, authorities have to intervene and protect these natural resources because without them, we don't have a future. That's another. And then finally, the pollution, garbage crisis. How many times you use cellophane bags, these shopping bags. If you ask a shopping bag they'll put another like they'll put this shopping bag in another shopping bag and
Yes,
give
sir.
it. If you ask any product in nowadays in a supermarket, they put that in a shopping bag, and worse now, 2 or 3 shopping bags. Their version of customer care is wrapping your food or whatever with as much as possible shopping bag. And a
Yes,
shopping
sir.
bag would take about 500 years to disintegrate. And when it disintegrates, it produces microplastics. And the microplastics go into your body. Each person, every person, on average consumes about microplastics worth of a credit card size. So, and we are studying microplastics these days in our oceans. And it's alarming. You see microplastics in organs, like in the brain, in heart, in kidneys. So this is a dangerous thing. So birds act. So we are studying seabirds and the amount of microplastics in them because they eat fish, we eat fish. So we study seabirds to understand how much microplastic that we consume. So, and we see like alarming stuff. Right now. So the birds act as indicators as well. The health checks of the environment.
Right.
But so like if you are a consumer of plastic, you are contributing to the global plastic garbage crisis.
Yes.
So avoid consumption of plastic. If you have a milk, like if you pick a milk packet, if you ask a milk packet, you get a milk packet, a plastic straw, and both put it in a bag.
Yes.
Well, there's no way like you can't get milk onto your paws like this. But you can at least not have the plastic bag as a start, and then you can get a glass bottle instead of plastic bottles. That option is mostly available. That's true for many other products. So go for the less plastic option.
Right, sir.
Go for the natural options because that's like we have 22 million people. If you change your behavior, if each one of these 22 million change one something today, that is 22 million changes.
Yes.
That's a lot for a small country.
It's a lot, sir.
Yes.
Thank you very much for your insights today, sir. It was truly mind-blowing, sir.
All right.
It was a pleasure
Thank
to
you.
have you, sir.
Thank you very much, and all the best for your report.
Thank you very much. And that brings us to the end of the first episode of Wilderness Insight 24, brought to you by the Wilderness and Wildlife Protection Society of Royal College. Stay tuned for the latest.